Corey Berry from the Herman Ostrow School of Dentistry of USC, and part of the CAAPID advisory group. Today, joining us are Emma Hobson from University of the Pacific, Stacy Brown from Indiana University, and Mara Zelaya from NYU. The advisory group is a group of users, including admissions officers and program directors, who lead the service by making changes to improve CAAPID for applicants and programs. We're working on something very exciting and significant for 2024, so stay tuned. As you know, many applicants apply more than one time to our advanced standing programs. This can be quite a challenge. Therefore, the advisory group is in the process of creating a resource with the goal of guiding reapplicants like yourself with general advice and insight from our advanced standing admissions officers throughout the CAAPID network. This resource is not prescriptive. It is just meant to help applicants understand the process and determine ways in which they can shape their own reapplicant journey and experience. We have identified 5 aspects, also known as the 5 R's of the reapplicant experience. Today, we're going to share why these were chosen, their importance in the process, and preview some of the insights and advice coming in 2024. The first R is revisit. Emma, I'm going to ask you if you can highlight some of the questions that you received from your applicants regarding this particular R.
Absolutely. Thank you, Corey. It's very important for our applicants to review and to revise materials after each application that you go through every cycle. So the critical thinking and the editing that are necessary for a second application, really, they demonstrate maturity and growth through the process. As you know, there are some items that are transferable through ADEA CAAPID, and there are some that are not, and those are outlined on the website. But one of the questions that we typically get from our applicants has to do with our letters of evaluation, their personal statement, as well as any program-specific materials or experiences that they have to update. So as you likely know, experiences will transfer over, but you want to make sure that you do revisit your application and update those experiences, especially important as a reapplicant, because you want to make sure that you show what you've been up to between your previous application and when you're reapplying. Additionally, and honestly, this is probably something you want to pay even closer attention to, are the letters of evaluation. You want to make sure that you, first of all, change the dates, reach out to your letter writers and decide whether or not you want to continue to use the same letters or choose new ones, because they are transferable, but they're not transferable, and you want to make sure that that you have those updated with new dates and if you're choosing any new writers. And additionally, the personal statement is not transferable. And I get questions a lot of the time of whether or not they need to update this or completely start from scratch. And I usually tell applicants that, you can use the same personal statement, but we do recommend drafting a new draft. Even if you use some of the same content from last one, that's fine. But just make sure that you relook at it and add anything that you think is important to the new draft of your personal statement.
Nice. And how effective do you think that this has been with regards to providing this type of advice to applicants that are applying to your school? How effective?
Yeah, I think it's been effective in the sense that I think providing them with resources, which we talk about a little bit more later, but I typically will offer some links of different writing centers that have free resources where they can use these resources to help kind of draft their statements. I also recommend that applicants reach out to family members or colleagues or professional mentors who can help them kind of review their personal statement before they post it, to make sure that it's kind of coherent and has a good flow and really represents them in a good light. So those are some advice that I typically give our reapplicants that can be highly effective.
I love that advice. Thank you. Thank you, Emma. I think that's great. That's great to know. The next R that we're going to discuss briefly is knowing the rules. So Mara, what insight can you provide us about rules?
Thank you, Corey. So yes, I would say for one of the rules would be for an applicant to start in the beginning. First of all, reassess your application. See what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Then from there, I always recommend for them to go to the ADEA CAAPID. That's where we'll to their ADEA CAAPID website. That's where they will find all the schools in one place. They will see like all the requirements that the schools has, but also will provide a direct link to each school website, and then you could choose which school best fits what you're looking for, the city and the program itself. From there, look at the requirements. Not all the requirements will be the same for each school. They may differ. You want to make sure that you meet all the requirements for each school that you're applying to. Don't assume that just because you meet one school's requirement, it'll be sufficient for another school. That isn't, it won't be the case. And if you have any doubts or any questions, always contact the admissions office of each school, and they will gladly help you and guide you to what you need to do. Let's say if you need to retake a TOEFL exam, take the time to practice and study for the exam. If you haven't been successful with the INBDE exam, reach out to someone. Maybe they could give you a few pointers on how you can study to prepare for this exam. If your overall GPA is not as strong as you wish it would be, it should be, then you might want to consider doing some kind of a program that will strengthen your overall application. And like Emma said, review your personal statement. There's not a school that will like for you to apply with the same application year after year. There has to be a change. We like to see that you put in the work and time to improve your application.
Nice. Thank you, Mara.
You're welcome.
It sounds like to me that a lot of there's a lot of information, first of all, in what you said, which is great information. But it seems like they have to really be organized because you're applying to all these schools and you have to keep track of all these things. Do you have any recommendations about staying organized or maybe starting earlier?
I definitely look at the schools that you really want to apply to and see what they're looking for. Make sure you have everything ready. So when you're about to apply, if there's a requirement, make sure that you meet all their deadlines. Because some schools there could be more lenient than others. Maybe they want to have everything in before the deadline. So you have to make sure that you have everything, all your exams, your applications, your letters of recommendation, your personal statement on file. So I think that's the best way to go about it.
Nice. Very good. Thank you, Mara. The next star we're going to talk about briefly is responsibility. Stacy, what role does responsibility play in the reapplicant experience?
Thank you, Corey. First of all, I'd like to say that responsibility has a role in terms of revisits and the rules of the IDP application cycle. We typically want students to have control over most of the aspects of that application process. So part of reapplying, we like to give you as many tips as we can to help you be successful this go round. So a lot of the questions that we receive from applicants are questions like, when is your application deadline? And can I submit TOEFL scores that are 2 years or older? Some of the questions we receive are, do you accept updates to the application after the application cycle closes? Where do you upload all of your documentation? Those are questions that you can find out most of the time on that school's. So be clear with the schools that you want to apply to. Make sure that you go out to their website, check their application and processes. A lot of times you'll get valuable information from that website. So we like for you to be able to be in control of this process. And your first step would be to go out there and inquire through the website.
Nice. So by not adhering to this and taking responsibility, do you think this can make or break the applicant?
I honestly do. What it ends up doing is making the applicant a late applicant. So they wait to the last minute to be able to complete those requirements. They miss deadlines. They're constantly reaching out to the school, asking questions that they could have been proactive and completed on the front end. It can also make them not in the running, because if they don't submit all of the requirements in a timely fashion, it means their application goes on hold. So it's very important for them to go to those websites, get that information up front so that they can be successful in that application process.
Right. So in other words, you have seen this happen. This does happen, correct?
It does happen quite often. It delays the process because we're in a process of review of receiving application, basically checking off to make sure that the applicant has all the requirements. And then there's typically, most schools have another supplemental application that the student has to complete. So if you're not sending in everything that we need to be able to send you on to the supplemental phase, then that delays the process. The deadline is going to quickly approach, and they're going to be struggling trying to get those documents in. So it's important that they stay on top of everything when they're starting this process.
Right. That's so true. Thank you. Well, the next R is mine. I'll take this one. It's resources. First thing I would like to say and add is that resources can be your best friend. The resources available to you, that is. And we have plenty of resources that are available to you. In other words, getting to know the schools you're applying to is very crucial. So I must reiterate that researching your schools of interest, you can do so many different things. One in particular with our school is that we have an information session. During the pandemic, it was online, so it wasn't as personable, but now we're back to in person. So we have something called Fight on Friday, and we call it ASPID Fight on Friday for the ASPID applicants. That's a very important resource available to you all as candidates. So I urge you to get to know the schools by visiting them, attending any event that they have available to you, such as our Fight on Friday. And again, these are all valuable in your application journey. Emma, Stacy, and Mara, can you please provide some examples of the resources that you might have at your school or resources that you might suggest?
Absolutely. Thank you. In my advice that I typically give to reapplicants, one of the first things I'll say, and I'll say this to first-time applicants or reapplicants, however, I think it is incredibly important for a reapplicant, is to make your own resources as well. And those resources can really help you stay organized. And what I mean by that is, for example, one of the things I recommend often is creating a spreadsheet, which you can use to track the schools that you're applying to. So have a line for each school you're applying to, track their deadlines, track their requirements, supplemental applications, fees, what you have and haven't done. So make a checklist for each school, and this spreadsheet can help you stay on top of everything when all these schools have these different moving deadlines that are happening quickly. It'll go by fast. Additionally, another example I would give is creating, and you can do this at any time. You don't have to wait until your application starts. And in fact, I would often advise starting this as soon as possible before the application opens, is create a Google Doc or a Word doc of some kind where you can track your experiences and start collecting them in one place. And you can kind of create a template, something that has your contact information for each employer, your duties in each position, your the dates that you worked at that place, and do this from dental school all the way, anything you think would be important to your application all the way to now. And helping you to kind of start those tracking and resources at the beginning before you start applying will really help mitigate a lot of the time it takes to put together your application in the long run. So I do recommend starting that as soon as possible. So that's something I mean by kind of creating your own resources and really making sure you're staying organized and on top of everything, because it does move fast when you get started.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you find, this is another question that I have about this, do you find it effective? Do students relate to that when you advise that? And do you feel that they're organized?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I tell people that, and in fact, our school has a unique CV template, actually. associated with our application process. It's one of the longer CV templates that I've noticed of other schools. I think a lot of times schools will ask for a 1 or 2 paged resume or something. Ours is very lengthy because this is the thing that our interviewers and reviewers primarily use to review experiences. And so I tell people you can use our template and go from there, because ours is one of the most in-depth as possible. So if you have ours done, then you probably have everything you need for everyone else's. But you know, a lot of people will create their own and start banking on their resources, and just doing that ahead of time, I think, just helps mitigate a lot of the stress that happens during the cycle, because it can take so much time to type in everything into your experiences and create different versions of your resumes and CVs. Having some of this material just ready to go when you start applying in March will make your time a lot more efficient and make things move a lot smoother and feel a lot less stressful, because you're not having to scramble to put this stuff together during the cycle.
Right.
So true. So true, Emma. I totally agree with you. So thank you. That's a great advice. Mara, what about you? Could you provide us some example of resources that they could benefit from?
Sure, of course. So here at NYU, we do have virtual meetings that we have a couple of hours weekly. So the students can reach out through that. If they're a current applicant, through their applicant portal, they will have a direct link to the calendar, where they could select a day and time that they would like to meet with an admission officer. Or they could go through the main website. There's also a link through there. But I would say always, like I said before, contact each school. Make sure you have all the requirements, all their deadlines. Make sure I always insist that their application should be completed before they apply, because you don't know what could happen. Some things could delay you taking a test, and in some schools, like for us, we prefer that everything is in by the deadline. We may give some time after, a few days after the deadline, but usually we prefer everything to be in by the deadline so that we could start reviewing applications. And if your application is incomplete, unfortunately, we won't be able to review. And as much as you insist, it breaks our heart, but sometimes we just can't. Make sure you have everything by the deadline. Any questions that you have, any doubts, always ask us. You could email us, you could call us, you could set up a virtual meeting. I don't recommend contacting, following friends that are already in the program, what they've done or how they did when they applied. Their journey will be different than your journey. So, and the application process is personal. So make sure you reach out and ask for what works for you, what you can do for yourself. And
nice.
And I think that's,
go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I'm done.
I was going to ask you, Mara, really quickly about your virtual information sessions. Can you tell us, like, what's the biggest benefit of attending those?
Well, it's a one-on. Well, we do have like once or twice a month virtual, what we call a DDS day. Just talk about the process, the application process, what the programs that the school offers, and things like that, and any questions that someone that's going to be applying, usually for the first time. The virtual meeting is just a one-on-one with an admission offer, 15 minutes, just to, if they have any questions about their application, where they're standing, the usual questions that an applicant may have, and that we could go over it, or someone that's getting ready to apply, and things like that.
Nice. Thank you. Stacy, what about you? What resources could you provide?
Well, I think we all use some of the same credible resources. And at our school, we use the virtual information session. We typically have them every quarter. And we do them separately, one for the international dental students and one for the DDS, because the requirements are different. And so for the reapplicants, it's a good way to kind of be proactive and get information on the front end before they start their application process. So it's really important to go out there and register for those information sessions. We also offer one-on-one advising appointments with our director of admissions, who kind of goes over their application. The applicant gets the opportunity to ask about things they could change or things they need to improve on. And we kind of give them, great insight into where they were in the previous application cycle to where they could be if they work on certain things. And so That, as well as just because we all are dental schools, we all have different requirements per our website. So go to the website. Each of us has different resources available to all of our applicants, and it's important that you use those. Also, reach out to the admissions department. A lot of them give you their email address. Email them if you have a question. There is no dumb question. All questions are valuable. And one last thing is there are social media groups. Each school has different social media groups per their international dental programs. Reach out to individuals that are on those groups and ask them questions. Sometimes just them helping you tweak the way you presented yourself could be good for your application. Those are just some of the things that we see as good resources for the applicants.
So true. Yeah. And they're all very significant, I must say. I have some of the same advice that I would give our candidates. Do you, Stacy, a lot of times, do you see success in those candidates who come back to apply after receiving all this information or attending, one-on-one meetings? Do you see success in that?
Yes, we do. We actually see they tend to reach out more. And so we learn more about their passion and their perseverance to really want to be in the program. So we kind of get a more in-depth view of that applicant. Honestly, it kind of helps them, really realize that this is what they really want to do. Because some students will stop. They just didn't get in. But the ones that continue and they're resilient and they show their grit, we know that they're really interested in being a dentist here in the U.S. So we suggest that you use all the avenues that you can to be successful in that application process.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And so motivational, I think that they will take a lot from that, knowing that it can happen and you can be successful. So Thank you for that, you three. The final R is reflect. And we often have to do this in our own everyday lives. We know that. We all have personal struggles and things of that nature. And the reapplication process is no different. It's no exception. Reflection can help you prioritize. You take a step back when you have challenging experience. And I often advise our applicants to process what those challenges mean to them personally, and ultimately learn from them and develop a positive mindset. So this process can help you become more confident and strive even harder when applying to our advanced standing program. So please, please, please keep that in mind. Remember that applying to dental school is a complex and lengthy process. Applying a second, third, fourth time can even be more challenging and grueling. Reapplicants who take responsibility, understand the rules, reflect on their application, critically review resources, and take time to revise their materials will take ownership of their own process and put their best foot forward when applying to these programs. Remember that these resources will become available in spring 2024, and all registrants will be notified when it debuts. So myself, Mara, Stacy, and Emma would like to thank you, and we wish you the very best in your journey to dental school. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.